But that's it. Bring it to you, Miss Bird.
Very enjoyable. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate all that history.
We love your deadpan humor.
And whatnot.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Spirits and Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Thomas Ahrens.
And I'm Carly Bird.
Yeah, we got bad internet tonight for some reason. I think we're going to have to juice up our internet a little bit.
It looks horrible.
This is what it's been like for a lot of my live streams recently, Miss Bird.
What?
Yeah. So I think it's because...
It's the first time I'm hearing of it.
I know. Congratulations. If you guys are new here to Spirits and Ghost Stories, we basically get smashed, tell some stories, and we backsass each other like we are a divorced couple. That's kind of how it works here. Tonight, we couldn't come up with a drink recipe that like we normally do. So we are mixing tequila shots, spit, and liquid death. We're mixing both of these together right now. And I'm going to tell you, it's a very interesting combination, especially with the spittle in there. And that's because I tried to drink the whole thing at one time, and then I realized...
like vodka sodas.
Yeah, it's basically vodka sodas.
Tequila seltzers.
So how are we doing tonight, Carly?
We're doing great. It's a Tuesday night, which feels really weird to do Spirits and Ghost Stories on a Tuesday night. I don't know. It's so random. You know, we both worked our jobs today, and we both got off around 5-ish o'clock, and I was like, you know what? Let's take the dog for a walk, come back, do Spirits and Ghost Stories. So here we are, finally 9 o'clock at night, almost, and we are sitting down, getting ready to read you the story we found for you all this evening. Thomas also put a lot of time and effort into his scary thing in the news. And I believe he's going to be telling us that in just one moment.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that too. And I just also want to say, thank you guys so much. We are here. We're getting this thing back going. I'm going to be a little bit, I messed up and I deeply apologize for that. I tried to sleep and I need to put more time and effort into this. There's no excuses. But yeah, we won't be missing a week now. I would rather sell my horse and I'm not going to do that. No, I could never sell him. I could sell her on episode JoJo. He's my bestie. I really realized also on a really side note is this is my channel. I can say whatever I want. And for some reason, I feel like so much more emotional here with this. But yeah, no, I could probably, if I had to pick between Carly or JoJo, that'd be hard. That'd be a really hard Saul game. It's like, do you want to play a game? It's like,
oh my gosh.
Shit, I couldn't do that. I couldn't pick. I really couldn't pick. I couldn't pick.
Wow.
I mean, come on, JoJo.
Your wife for the rest of your life. You know, she'll probably end up outliving you. Or your dog that's only going to live for another 10 years. You know what? Okay.
Anyway, we're going to keep going here because of all these things. So the first thing we have is a little scary thing in the news segment that I found, which this one was kind of enjoyable to me. Let me get it up right here.
Why was it enjoyable to you?
Well, I'm going to show you. If I can get it up. I'm going to figure out. There it is. So, scary thing in the news. This was fantastic. This is called, Does Meth Help You See Ghosts?
Ooh.
Benjamin Oliver Gleason from 3 years ago, and this is on Reddit. I 100% see spirits or ghosts on meth. That's why I only do it twice. Once for a week, and then once again for a week, then never again. I love that sentence because he probably did this on meth.
Can you say that one more time?
I 100% agree. I 100% see spirits or ghosts on meth. That's why I only did it twice. Once for a week, and then once again for a week. Then never again. I don't know, y'all, or how spiritual you are, but magic is everywhere, and dimensions are easily accessible through hallucinations.
Oh.
I believe the meth experience is a fucked up one in particular because when on it, I feel like my third eye is being ripped open or something.
What?
Impossible to close. Extremely hyper aware. Too aware. Not a fan of that stuff. An anonymous from here. I'm pretty sure it opens a lot of shit.
I can't hear you when you're laughing.
I'm sorry. Can you see it okay? I'm pretty
small.
All right, here we go.
That's better.
So, and this is in the same thread. I'm pretty sure It opens a lot of shit that we are not supposed to see. My fiance and I were on a 5-day meth binge, and we saw the same exact ship go down at the same time. The night of day 5, it started with both of us hearing this crazy shit coming from the fan. I'm talking voices and very weird sound radio. We both pretty much played it off as we were just hearing shit, and it was all in our heads. About an hour or two later, we both started seeing, I guess, outlines of characters from old Disney movies. Like these things were clear or see-through, but it was a distinct outline.
Your brain ripping itself apart.
Shapes them. Almost like these things were cloaked. I don't know how else to explain it, but these outline things were everywhere in our apartment. Again, we played it off. I like to think they have guests over and they're trying to be like, cool. We played it off as a lack of sleep, and our minds were just fucking with us. My fiance started to kind of freak out a little more than I did. I kept telling her not to worry about it, and it was just the shit fucking with us. So now a lot of things outlines were starting to get color to them, and both of us were seeing it. I'm talking shit moving around. I want to do an accent, but I'm not going to do that right now.
I'm talking about shit moving around, door-knobs, moving.
Oh
I tried taking a video of it in action, and halfway through my shot, my phone automatically closed the camera app on my phone and went to the main screen without saving anything. We were literally watching this before our eyes for, I don't know.
I told you this was gold.
An hour or so.
This might be the episode,
then
guys.
Shit calms down. I suppose this all started around 2:30 a.m., 3 o'clock a.m., and it seemed to start slowing down around 4:30 a.m. to 5-ish. The shit moving stopped, but we could see the outlined clear things.
So we both kind of looked at each other
There you go.
and talk about how fucked up that was and blah, blah. I go to have a cigarette on the balcony. I did not expect in this story that they had a house with a balcony, believe it or not.
It's probably an apartment with a balcony.
Good point. I open the blinds and open the slide door and see this pretty small flying saucer type object that had rotating pulses of light around it. The size of this thing was probably around the size of a large truck tire. You would find on a
Your accent keeps changing.
It does. That you would find on a 2500 or 3500 Chevy pickup, or probably larger. It directly across the street from us, hovering about 20 feet in the air. The noises was loud. I can't describe it in words, but the noises went with pulsating light, like wah, 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 wah. So I'm like, what the fuck? I call my fiance to come look. I'm like, babe, look, what the fuck is that? So we walk on the balcony and we see, 12, 20 people in line outside. Now you pick up.
In line outside, and can tell they are in a trance, and each carrying something random. Some had a chair. One guy had a small folding card table. Just really random shit. My fiance points out and says, "Look, babe, they are all in sync and obeying." Around that time, we saw this ghostly figure in the trees that had been watching us and jumped down and started coming out our way. We ended up closing the balcony door and blinds right before it came up to the balcony. At this point, we're freaking the fuck out.
We could see the outline of whatever the hell it was, just sitting there and not moving. We laid on the floor in the living room and did not move for the rest of the night. We woke up a few hours later to everything for what most part back to normal. Everything was gone for the time being anyway. I have more on this story that I'll share later, or if anyone wants to hear the shit that happened 2 nights later. Anyway, what the fuck? What happened 2 nights later?
How much meth are you taking?
Anyway, I don't think it was just us seeing shit, because we both recall everything in great detail.
Detail?
Because we can remember it, clearly everybody else must have seen this thing too. The experience was very real and very scary. I don't know what the fuck happened, but this whole thing is something that I never want to experience again. If anyone wants to shed some light on what might have happened, I would appreciate the info. We got one more. No. Demons, yes. It takes 24 to 72 hours of no sleep to real. Used to think they were fake until I saw them subtly interact with non-users of the environment itself.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, yeah.
Now, if you ever want to contact...
That's gold. That was freaking gold. Guys, come on. That was a story in of itself. You know what? That was improv, by the way. Us bouncing back and forth. I like that. I like the energy that gave.
I do too. That was enjoyable.
It's just like, listen. We could remember what happened. So clearly everyone knew that happened. And the fact that they walked out to the balcony, it's like, we saw those people on lines. Like, that could have been the cops. Like, you don't know.
Could have been anybody.
And the fact that he said like
people
a 30
just chilling, like if it just holding a chair and a table is not random, especially when you're out on the lawn. Like maybe they're setting up a table to have a picnic. I don't know. It's not random. But anyway, when you're on drugs, it's very random.
Oh my goodness, that was a scary thing in the news. And then so we got a two-parter for the back history before we get into the main story tonight. This is just I thought this was kind of neat. This is an article from the Appalachian Folklore. The Blue Mountain Ridge Guide Service. And let me switch this. I just thought this was a really neat article. And it talks about superstitions actually in Appalachia that are still really followed to this day. And so we're going to kind of just go through a couple of them right here real quick. So some of the Appalachians. So here we go. When I asked my Tennessee-based family about the most common Appalachian superstitions, I was shocked by how many we still practice today. Many of these mountain folklore sayings were passed down by my great-grandparents, but still live on centuries later. Number 1, never close a knife you didn't open, or you'll have bad luck for 7 years.
I never heard that one before.
I thought this was a little neat, so we're just going to do this a little quick. All right, let's see the next one. All right, okay. Keep a penny in your washer for good luck.
Okay.
Didn't know that. Always go out the same door you came in.
Interesting.
Never heard of that one either.
Well, that means you can't ever use a different door. Oh, no, you can use a different door. Hold on. Never go out the same door you didn't come in. Okay, so if you come in the front door, you have to go out the front door, but then you could later come in the back door.
We need more tequila is what it means. Number 3, always... Wait, I just that one. Number 4, eat black-eyed peas or collard greens with hog jaw on New Year's Day.
Gross.
I literally think we could do a deep dive on every single one of these, but we'll go through them. Don't wash clothes on New Year's Day. I love how these connect, like these just flow through to the next one. Yeah. Don't wash clothes on New Year's Day, or you will wash a family member out.
I don't know
what does that mean.
I have no idea what that means.
Don't sleep on New Year. There's 3 in a row about New Year's. Why
are they all about New Year's?
Yeah, something happens on New Year's. Don't do any
canning or gardening on your period.
There's a story
Plant your crops under the full moon. Don't walk under a ladder. If you find yourself under one, don't turn around. Back up.
That is so oddly specific. If
don't turn around.
Any Appalachian people listening, how much that one is like something happened.
Probably because it takes too much time to turn around. Just back up. Because it's dangerous.
That means they had a conversation about that. You know, like you're in corporate meetings. I'm in corporate meetings now. It's like somebody had a corporate meeting about that. Like, listen, Linda. I'll use Linda. Linda's a random name. You know, we don't know who Linda is.
Listen, Linda, listen. You know, like that. It
was like Linda. It's like, oh yeah, don't turn around. No, you got to keep going through. It's like, but the ladder's like this narrow. So why would you turn around? A ladder's not very wide.
It's not pretty wide, especially the tall ones.
But it's not like a run lane. You know what I mean?
Could be if it's tall.
That's gonna get clipped. Don't let anyone sweep under your feet. How in the hell could you do that?
You had to be standing pretty wide.
Yeah. Just sleep under your horse feet. Never give someone a set of knives as a gift. If you give them to newlyweds, it will cut their love.
Interesting.
That one definitely seems very folklore-y. I don't know why. It's just like, I don't know.
Okay, this one makes sense. If a black cat crosses your path, turn and go a different way. We've heard that one so many different times. Never repay salt that you have borrowed. Never repay salt that you... Okay, well, that just sounds stingy. It's like if you go to the neighbor's house, hey, can I borrow your salt? And then never replace that for them. That's you know.
That's just interesting. Like, it seems like almost like a witch tale thing. And the next part is here. If a bad storm is coming, put a 2-edged axe into a stump facing the storm to ensure the storm goes around you. That definitely feels like some folklore stuff.
So random.
Yeah. If you spill salt, there's salt twice.
Oh my gosh. This one. If you spill salt, throw a pinch over your left shoulder so you won't have bad luck.
I remember that one.
Have you ever seen anyone do that?
Me.
You do that?
Yeah, I do that. My grandma taught me that.
My grandma. Seriously. I remember my parents talking about this.
But it's Appalachian culture. There we go. We finally got one.
Straight up would just like if salt gets knocked over, she would just like brush it off the table and just like toss it over her shoulder. And my mom, I remember being like, she's making such a mess.
I just think that's interesting. Like I don't know, like this. And guys, what we'll do is that's 15. I think there's 30. I'm gonna cap, and we'll actually talk about the next 15 on the next episode of Spirits and Ghost Stories, just to like, you know, give a little attention. I thought this was really neat. Like, like what are some of these that we actually follow now? And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into a little that's a little appetizer to get us plucked. This will be the second appetizer, but here's the back history, and then Miss Bird is gonna get into the story here. And so Appalachian folklore refers to the traditional beliefs, stories, customs, and practices of the people living in Appalachia. The region of the United States that is from New York all the way down to Georgia, just following that vein of the Appalachian Mountains. The folklore of the Appalachia has its roots in the rich cultural heritage of the diverse groups that settle in the region, including Native Americans, European settlers, Scotch-Irish, English, and the Germanic tribes, and the Celts, including African American groups as well. The history of Appalachian folklore can be traced back to the early settlements of the region between the 16th and 17th century. I don't know about 16th. That feels a little bit early, but the isolation and rugged terrain of Appalachian Mountains contributed to the development of distinct cultures identified among the people living there. As the settlers adapted to the challenges of their environment, they developed unique customs, beliefs, and storytelling traditions. One prominent aspect of Appalachian folklore is the oral traditional storytelling played a vital role in passing down traditions, legends, and supernatural beliefs from one generation to the next. The stories often featured supernatural creatures such as ghosts, witches, shapeshifters, as well as legends of hidden treasure, mysterious disappearances, and encounters with the supernatural. Appalachian folklore also incorporate, I know, right? I'm on a roll. Appalachian folklore also incorporated elements of folk magic and superstitions, also known as granny magic, which we've covered indefinitely on this channel. Music and dance are integral parts of Appalachian folklore. The region is known for its distinct style of traditional music. And I thought this was an interesting thing I threw in there, including ballads, fiddles, which is a type of violin, and bluegrass, which also evolved into jazz, which is Appalachian. This cultural music actually spread around the world during World War I, when soldiers from the areas brought it over to France and England. In the late 19th and 20th centuries, scholars and collectors such as... Oh, that's a hard name.
Oh my gosh. Scholars and collectors.
Such as C.E.
You don't have to say such as.
C.I.L. Celia Sharp.
That doesn't sound like a hard name. It sounds like a really
I'm
easy
Curly
name.
Bird. I can read. Dan Campbell recognized the value of Appalachian folklore and began documenting its traditions. Appalachian folklore continued to evolve over time as the religions went through social and economic changes. The cultural traditions and storytelling practices persisted, but they also interacted with modern influencers. Today, Appalachian folklore, its customs, its traditions, and its supernatural stories and experiences are still celebrated to this day. That is a little backstory for our new listeners. And then every other episode of Appalachia, I try to add a little bit to the backstory portions of it. But that's it. Bring it to you, Miss Bird.
Very enjoyable. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate all that history.
We love your deadpan humor.
And whatnot. Thank you. About damn time someone does. All right, everyone. Now I finally get to talk and read. and Tommy can interrupt periodically, but if he does it too often,
smite him.
I'm gonna get annoyed. So, prepare yourselves for the tale of the spirits of Appalachia.
Ooh.
I grew up in southern Appalachia. In western North Carolina, 30 minutes outside the town of Asheville, the hills and hollers of the Appalachian Mountains, are some of the oldest mountains in the world, with some of the rock formations dating back over 1 billion years. That quite literally means that they were here before there were terrestrial animals. As with most things that have been on this earth a long time, there are inexplainable anomalies, both benevolent and malevolent. For example, the Brown Mountain Lights. Never in my life have I ever felt threatened or uneasy when witnessing them. From wise man's view, they're neither good nor evil, they just are. On the benevolent side, sometimes when you walk through an abandoned old church up near mom and dad's property line, you can feel good, warm, and happy energy. It's like that first day of summer when the sun shines not too hot, but it's not too cold. Well, this story is not about one such anomaly. It's about something that was definitely malevolent. Good Lord. Definitely malevolent. About a decade ago, I was in night school up at AB Tech, going to school for automotive mechanics. I would go into class about 2:00 p.m. after I got off my part-time job and would end up getting home around 10:30 p.m. depending on traffic. Every night, I drove the same road in my old 1973 W200 Dodge pickup. Some nights, it would get rather boring and I would take a different route, jump off of I-40 and drive the back roads. On this particular evening, I've decided to just stay on I-40 because I just wanted to go home and go to bed. It was Thursday and there was no class on Friday, and I wanted to get to bed early so I could go into the woods and go hiking early in the morning and watch the sun come up. As I jumped off of I-40 onto the exit where my parents lived, the night seemed to get darker. None of the animals that I could hear through my rolled down windows made any more noise. The cab of my truck became smaller and smaller, and my breathing quickened. I have never faced any kind of fear like this in my life, but at that moment, something felt off. There was no way I could put my finger on what it was. I came to a stop on the exit ramp, turned to go down the road, and I happened to notice that the gas station off the exit where Mom and Dad lived had no lights on. They were a 24-hour truck stop and always had lights on, but I didn't think about it again after noticing. I just chalked it up to the power being out, but I could not shake the feeling that something was definitely askew. I slowly shifted through all of my truck's gears, not wanting to make any more noise. I leaned over my steering wheel to look up at the moon through the windshield. There were barely any stars visible, which was way out of the ordinary. If you've ever been to Appalachia, primarily the sparsely populated areas where I'm from, you can see the Milky Way on clear nights. An absence of stars back home is only due to cloud cover or whatever in the hell went on this particular night. As I rounded a particularly sharp left-hand curve and chugged through a straight stretch before the next right-hander, I looked at the ancient decaying barn I always gazed at when riding that stretch of the road and thought about how long that thing had been there and how many advancements and civilizations it had seen. For the split second that my gaze wandered, a very large, sickly-looking dog ran out into the front of my truck, no more than 10 feet in front of me. Old Betsy the truck was good, but she didn't stop well. Thump, thump! I heard the fence posts I had in the back of my truck bounce off of the bed and back into it as I slid to a stop. My first thought was, oh God, now I have to go tell these neighbors that I ran over their dog. That shit doesn't go real far with people around here. It can really kind of set them off depending on the dog and the person. As I sat there breathing in the smell of burning rubber, something else found its way into my nose. the stench of rotting flesh. It's not a smell you ever forget once you smell it one time. I didn't pay much attention to it at all. I just chalked it up to some rotting roadkill nearby. Finally, I thought to myself, let me go check and see who this dog belongs to. I pushed my clutch in, shifted to reverse, and as I looked in my rearview mirror, illuminated by the haunting glow of my reverse lamps, was the same dog. Only, it wasn't on 4 legs anymore. It had stood up, like a man.
What?
A man well over 10 feet tall. Only then did it dawn on me that the front of my truck was every bit of 5 feet tall, and this dog was every bit of 5 feet tall at the shoulder on all 4s. As it turned its head to look in the direction of my truck, I caught only a glimpse of this creature. It was not a dog. It was not a man. It was somewhere in between, and at the same time entirely separate altogether. Its skin hung loose off its emaciated and thin frame, like a raccoon. Bits of matted fur and dirt and mud clung to its legs like a disease. The right arm seemed a little longer than the left, and they both hung abnormally low in relation to either animal this creature seemed to be. As it regained its senses, I turned and looked into the mirror. It turned and looked into the mirror like it knew exactly where I was sitting. The face was that of a man's, but the very edge of its face seemed to not be totally defined. They seemed to move and change like something you would see at a cellular level in a scientific documentary. There were no eyes, but only sockets where the eyes should have been. No hair, and the skin that was dripping off its face was a cold, lifeless gray color. The nose was short and shoved into its face like a bulldog, but the teeth still haunt me. It was definitely carnivorous and true to form of the rest of its unnaturally look. Many of the teeth didn't seem to be arranged in a natural way in its mouth. They seemed to fill and spill from the indefinable face, almost like they knew the horror they occupied and they were searching for a way out. It stared through my life, into my eyes, and past my soul. It seemed like an eternity, but it could not have been more than 5 seconds that I sat there paralyzed. A light came on at the house next to the road, causing the creature to snap its gaze in that direction and tear off into the woods on its 2 back legs like a man. I jammed my old truck in first gear and roasted the tires all the way through first, snatched second gear and drove as fast as I could home. When I got to the house, both of my parents were asleep. They went downstairs into my bedroom and loaded every firearm I possessed and locked all of the doors. I couldn't wake them up. Who the fuck would believe that? And at 10:30 on a Thursday night?
How old is this person? At 10:30 on Thursday night, the Lord's Day.
His parents are sleeping. He's not going to wake him up and tell him he saw Sasquatch.
That makes sense.
You would, though. The basement was eerily quiet that night. Even their dogs that got up to raise hell at outside animals at all hours of the night were dead silent. The old post and beam house didn't even creak or pop that night, as was usual. At about 3 a.m., I started to finally get drowsy, and as I went to lay my head down to get some sleep so I could still attempt to go hiking the next morning, I smelled the stench of death again. It was faint at first, but it was definitely there. I thought to myself, you're just going crazy. None of that shit was real. But as I dwelt on it, it became more and more noticeable until it filled the entire basement. My dad has a home office in the basement with 2 large glass doors that face Pisgah National Forest, which is, I think, a real place.
Yeah, it is.
An impenetrable 500,000-acre woods. I finally worked up the courage to walk out of my bedroom into the basement living room with my little tactile 12 gauge loaded and tack light on. I covered the flashlight with my hand so as not to make my presence known until need be, and as I turned right out of the living room into my father's office, I shined the light through the glass door and at the edge of the woods. There stood the creature. It was motionless. It stared right into the light, unafraid, with those soulless sockets devoid of light. I quickly covered my tactile light, ran into the living room, flipped on the outdoor floodlights. Into my surprise, it was no longer standing at the edge of the woods, but between the house and the edge of the woods, still motionless. I swung the door open and fired every round I had in its direction. I must have scored a couple of hits because it screeched an unearthly scream, like that of a being slaughtered, and took off into the woods.
Nope.
The dogs went crazy. Mom and Dad woke up asking me what the hell I was doing. I told them that a bear had gotten into the trash and I was scaring it away. They didn't believe me, but I knew they wouldn't believe the truth either. I didn't sleep that night or any time until the following Sunday. Everything seemed to return to normal, and I didn't think about the creature again until I met my wife about 6 years later.
Why? Okay. Continue.
What?
Continue.
Why what?
Why is it your wife jogged that memory? What does she look like?
Oh, you're about to find out.
Okay, sorry.
The wife didn't jog his memory of the Sasquatch. You think she's like a horrific beast?
Oh, honey, when I looked at you before you started shaving, I got the cold sweats this one night.
You're gross. Okay. Shh.
Sorry.
Her mother's house sits at the mouth of the holler. No more than 4 or 5 miles. Remember, we're in Appalachia. 4 or 5 miles up the road from my mother's and father's. Up on the side of the holler, there are kennels for her brother's hunting dogs. No longer in use, and haven't been in years, but the fence is still there, and the concrete pad is still there. It's a thing of great use when you need to quarantine an animal. Her Great Pyrenees had gotten into a tussle with a raccoon, which of course he destroyed, but his rabies vaccination had lapsed, so we had to keep him quarantined for a time. It didn't bother him, he kind of liked the solitude. This particular night that we were coming home from a movie date in a neighboring town was the last night of quarantine for the Great Pyrenees. So we walked up the trail using our phone flashlights to get to the kennel, and there he sat, patiently waiting, tail wagging, happy to see us. We put him on a leash and started walking back to the house with him. As we were walking back through the darkness, I started to feel the same feeling I had felt the night I hit the creature in my truck. I didn't say anything so as not to alarm my wife, but then the smell came wafting into the breeze. She jokingly asked me, "My God, what did you eat? You stink." I half-assed laughed, not being able to fully appreciate the joke for the horrors that raged within my mind. She immediately caught on and asked me, "What's wrong?" To which I could only reply, "I'll tell you later." She grew up in the woods and around hunting and things of that nature her whole life, so she knew what I meant. She knew we were being watched by something. When we could see the lights of the house from the trail to the kennel, we heard it. There came barking from the kennel that sounded just like the Great Pyrenees we had on a leash next to us. It was a perfect imitation. The Pyrenees, being a guardian dog, immediately sensed that something was wrong, and so he turned to face the danger, belting out deep barks and growls in that direction. I don't know if you've ever had to drag a 150-pound dog, but it sucks, and it's no easy task. I'm 6 feet tall, 240 pounds, and it was all I could do to get him back to the house. The barking never ceased the entire time we were running towards the house. In fact, it seemed to grow closer and closer until it seemed to be coming from inside my own head. Her mother heard the commotion and flipped the floodlights on as we made it into the fenced-in yard, and I caught a glimpse of something coming to a dead stop at the end of where the light reached, wheeling around and tearing off back into the darkness. My wife looked at me and goes, "You want to tell me what the fuck that was?" To which I replied, "Yes, let's go inside." I told her the story, and she listened intently, hanging on every word. Her family came from a long line of granny witches and other supernatural healers of the Appalachians. So her sister comes over the next day with some herbs and chants to bless the property and ward off evil. I suggest that we go up to the dog kennels and do them as well. When we go to the kennels, they were completely destroyed. The very concrete foundation was cracked, and the chain link fence was torn off its posts. The dog houses were destroyed, and the place reeked of the stench that followed the creature. My wife's older sister just went about her business like normal, blessed the place, burnt some herbs, and led us back into the property. When she got into the house, she wheeled about on us suddenly and instructed us very firmly to never go into the woods after dark. Not until this thing starts leaving me alone. To make a long story short, my wife joined the military and she ended up getting stationed in Delaware. Well, as someone who has lived around fairly large mountains and endless wilderness their entire life, Delaware was pretty terrible. At least that was my thought when we first moved into the middle of a 50,000 plus population city. Fortunately enough, though, it didn't take us long to find a house in a sleepy little community further south. We purchased the house and moved in with haste. We were both very grateful and glad to be out of the city and into a rural setting again. The land of Delaware seems lifeless in comparison to Appalachia. The sparsely populated woods don't possess any energy that goes one way or the other. The ground doesn't seem to be alive like it is in Appalachia. Having not thought about the creature in a long time, I resumed my staying outside after dark and playing with our dogs in a rather large yard that bordered a small patch of woods. Well, last night I went outside to play with my dogs, and as dark set in, I built a decent-sized fire pit and consumed some good old-fashioned Appalachian Mountain cough syrup from a mason jar. And just as the fire was dying down, that's moonshine. Just as the fire was dying down, my American bulldog tore off toward the woods. He has a habit of running off to go on adventures. So my immediate instinct was to chase him down in the yard and tackle him so he could not get away. As I tackled this 110-pound dog to the ground and threw him in a fireman's carry over my shoulders, I heard him begin to bark. Only the bark was not coming from him. The only sound coming from him was a deep, rumbling growl. A noise I'd never heard him make. It was a threatening noise. Something was definitely wrong, and I ran with him on my shoulders back to the house, the stench of death again beginning to fill the air. The two other dogs must have caught wind of what was happening and met me at the back door, which I threw open, slammed shut behind me, locked, and again loaded my firearms. How the hell did this thing follow us 650 miles up here? As I flipped my floodlights on at the back side of the house, several of the bushes and small trees at the forest's edge were still shaking like something had just run through them. My dogs went crazy all night, barking and howling and attempting to get out of the windows. I didn't sleep a bit, and I don't think I will for a while. I know for sure I won't be in the woods after dark ever again in my life. Not until this thing is gone. And that was the tale of the secrets of Appalachia.
That was a really good story.
She killed the
tension.
I can't help it.
She killed the tension.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, we have 7 people watching right now. That's insane.
Who else watching? Y'all should give us comments.
I don't know how to click. Oh, we do have some comments there.
Oh, I wish we knew who was watching.
We got
Linda. Matt York. Ha 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 ha. Linda.
Audio is having some difficulties.
Womp womp.
Linda, why don't you text me that?
Your wife gets it done. Thank you.
Matt York. Who the hell are you? Thank you. Audio is having difficulties. Your wife is hot. And then, ha ha, ha ha ha.
It says your wife gets it done, not your wife is hot, but thank you, babe.
What does getting it done mean?
Gets it done. it probably has something to do with whatever we said at 9:07.
Oh, that's true. Thank you. I do like how they kept
I can't with you.
I do like how they get back to the woods every single time. Like, it's just like, this thing almost kills you. We're going to go back to the woods. This thing almost kills you. Should bring my wife here. And I like how she's like, why didn't you tell me about this? Like, wow, it's a whole thing.
It was 6 years ago. He was literally a child. And then 6 years later, he's a man. He meets this woman.
He's a man.
He's a man.
She listens to audiobooks now. And in fact, there's like a female voice. And every time a big brawly man comes in, and she's like, hello, I'm here now.
No, I don't.
I love Linda just texted me. I did text you again. I'm watching. I love you so much. I really do. You are our best fan. And if we ever get merch, good night,
Biggest
good
fan.
story. Yeah, we're gonna get you some merch. It'll be like, and it's gonna be from our ghost story together. She knows what I'm talking about. We're gonna do another one of this. That was the best night of my life. One of the best night. There's gonna be context there. We'll talk about that next time. I'll just leave that in your minds for tonight. No, but that was a really good story. I guess the thing is, like, if it smells bad, get out of the woods.
If it smells bad, but if it smelled like roses
sticker,
and if
That's
it smelled like daisies and, cotton candy, then definitely stick around because it can't be that bad, right?
But I did like the fact, and we'll leave on this, like, where he's like, oh, yeah, if you came from Appalachia or the woods, anywhere in the woods, and you went to Jersey or Delaware, good Lord, that'd be terrifying. I mean, basically, hear me out. I didn't grow in the woods, but I didn't grow in the city. I was loud done. And I had to move to the city of Hagerstown. And guess what? My wife knows me. And I feel like I've gotten a little bit more city, a little bit more tougher. A little. I don't leave my doors unlocked anymore.
Thank God.
I don't leave my windows rolled down.
He doesn't leave the car running at the gas station anymore and just waltzing in. Oh, I'm just going to leave my car running because, I want people to steal my belongings.
I come from a land down under.
I know.
Yeah.
From entitlement. Yeah. Peace and money.
So yeah, I just meant, like, I felt for Appalachian guy when he's like, oh, I'll go to Delaware. It's like, yeah, he probably had his wife like, you just come from peace in the woods, and just you think all the squirrels are gonna greet you here, but these squirrels ain't gonna greet you. They're gonna stab you.
They're gonna stab you. Stabby squirrels.
And on this time, it's time to end, guys. Thank you for watching Spirits and Ghost Stories. We'll see you next time on Spirits and Ghost Stories. Bye.